Welcome back to Mind Body Mel. I've got another Artist Way recap for you this week. If you're new here, I'm Mel. So happy you're here. This is going to be weeks 4 through 6 reflections of my experience doing the Artist Way the whole way through this time because I have never been able to complete this. But this time, I'm getting it done. If you didn't get a chance to see weeks 1 through 3 reflections, go back and watch that. I'll have it linked here. I also talk about why I'm doing the Artist Way, what I hope to get out of it, and what the heck the Artist Way even is if you're like, I've never heard of this in my life. This video is going to cover weeks 4, 5, and 6 of the Artist Way, and I feel like this is when we really get into it. This is when we get into the weeds of the Artist Way. There's a lot of ups and downs over these 3 weeks, and I'm sharing all of my juicy reflections with you. How my morning pages went, what artist dates I went on. It's a good one, but before we get into it, please make sure that you hit the subscribe button. I don't want you to miss any of the future reflections because there will be more because I am finishing the Artist Way this time. I'm doing recaps of 3 weeks at a time. In the last video in this series, I'll also do a Q&A with all of your questions about the Artist Way. So if you have any, you can make sure to leave them in the comments below. And with that, let's get into week 4. Normally I record these at the end of the week after having gone through the week of the Artist Way. I just recorded the week 3 reflection and then I was doing the reading for week 4 and yeah, I'm a little nervous for this week and I've got a lot of feelings about it already. I had such an extreme emotional reaction just from the reading. This week is called Recovering a Sense of Integrity, and it's reading deprivation week, which I forgot that this comes this early into the course. I thought this was later. And last time I tried to do the Artist Way, I just skipped it. I just said, absolutely not, I will not be doing that, and just continued with the morning pages in the artist date. This time around, I am feeling like I really need this and I don't want to do it, but I'm going to do it. But I'm gonna tweak it a little bit because I think the essence of what the reading deprivation week, what she's getting at, can be modernized a little bit to today. Basically, it means no reading at all during the week. And the reason she gives is so that you really understand what are your own thoughts, what are your own feelings and ideas, and not being influenced by other creators. Starting to understand what are your ideas and what are ideas from other people that you're just constantly consuming. For me, I just don't think reading is necessarily the issue for me there. Like the examples she gives in this book are reading the newspaper every day, so it's a little outdated. I think we all know the real culprit now of hijacking our attention is social media. And I have been feeling like I need to do a social media detox. I've been really struggling with my phone, especially with all the stuff going on in the world right now. It's just in your face all the time. So I'm gonna slightly adjust the rules for the week. I am going to do no social media, no Instagram, no TikTok, no Threads, no Substack, no watching YouTube videos. I will need to upload YouTube videos, so I'm kind of playing with that a little bit. I'm also gonna do no podcasts, nothing in my ear that's telling me their opinion. I really want this to be a week where I'm just like tuning into how I feel. I'm gonna do limited TV. I'm not a huge TV person. I only watch TV like once or twice during the week, and I love Dancing with the Stars and I love watching the Eagles on Sunday. So those are gonna be my 2 TV moments. And then as far as actual reading goes, reading is a part of my evening routine. It's how I fall asleep, and I just know my sleep will suffer if I don't have that transition time. So I'm going to do only before bed. Sometimes I will read in the morning and on my lunch break. And I see how those could be times where I'm sitting with my own thoughts. I'm working on my own creative pursuits. So I'm going to limit it to just at night. So basically, hard stop on social media, podcasts, Substacks, YouTube videos, limited TV, limited reading. And that feels really hard. I will tell you that as I was doing this reading, I had such a visceral feeling of dread. I felt so uncomfortable. I felt kind of nauseous reading it, which tells me that that's exactly what I need. I almost feel this addictive feeling with social media, like I need it, I need it, I need it, and you're gonna take it away from me now, which is almost kind of embarrassing to admit, but I know I'm not alone in feeling that way. But I am really committed to doing this. I used an app blocker. I've used this app, it's called Jomo. There's so many different ones out there, like Opal. I've also been tempted to get the Brick. Let me know if you have that and if you recommend. I literally locked myself out of those apps on strict mode for 7 days. So it's gonna be interesting. What's crazy is that I viscerally felt this feeling of, oh no, beforehand. And then as soon as I hit block on the apps, I felt this wave of relief. It was crazy. It almost felt like yes, I don't have to rely on my willpower anymore. This is not an option for me this week. And then very quickly I felt like, now what? What do I do now to fill this time? So we'll see what happens. I literally just blocked it Sunday evening, so we've got the week ahead. I think this is gonna be a really hard week. Coming off of my last week where I just felt so angry, and now we're gonna go into this where I just have to sit with my feelings. Trust the process. All right, I'll check back soon. Well, week 4 is in the books. I did it. I got through reading deprivation, media deprivation week, and what a week. Sorry if I sound kind of congested and my eyes are kind of glassy. I'm a little bit sick, which we will get to, but I wanted to make sure that I was filming these reflections in real time, especially for this week, because it was kind of intense. Not gonna lie. So week 4 is recovering a sense of integrity. Integrity really referring to your unique artist voice, your unique ideas, your unique creativity, having a sense of creative integrity. And I know I filmed a little intro to this week, but just to refresh, Julia Cameron really talks about doing a reading deprivation. This book was written years ago, kind of before social media really became what it is now. And to me, what I felt like I really needed to deprive myself of or take a break from this week was social media and just constant consumption of YouTube videos and podcasts and reels and TikTok, and just we're constantly being fed other people's ideas. And I really see the value in taking a week to just kind of block that out, reconnect with your own voice. So I made up kind of my own rules for this. The goal was to do no Instagram, TikTok, no watching YouTube videos, no podcasts, no Substack, and to limit reading to just before bed, because that is such a crucial part of my nighttime routine and I knew it would affect my sleep. And at that time of day, I really don't want to activate a lot of creative thoughts because I'm not gonna be able to fall asleep. So I just kept it to in the evening. And normally I do read all throughout the day whenever I have a spare 5 minutes. So that was different for me. And I did limited TV. I watch very little TV. So I just kept it to a couple live things like Dancing with the Stars that I knew I wanted to watch live. So the big question is, how did this week go? Well, I completely locked myself out of all the social media apps on my phone and on my computer using an app blocker called JOMO. It's called Joy of Missing Out. There's tons of different app blockers like this. Ironically, on the last day of this challenge, my subscription expired and I do think I want to switch to a different one this year. I've tried a couple before. If you have a favorite, if you've tried the brick, I'm really interested in the brick too for blocking social media. I'm going on a tangent right now, but that's fine. I see a lot of people getting the brick and being so excited about it, but not really talking about their experience or if it's helped a couple months later even. So I'm afraid it'll just be like a $60 purchase that ends up sitting in a drawer and I don't really use it. So if you have gotten the brick and you've used it and it's been a good experience, would love to hear. So I hate to say this because I literally tell my clients not to do this, but I was definitely in a habit of checking my phone first thing, going through my email first thing in the morning. And that Monday morning where I literally couldn't get into my apps, my first thought was definitely, oh, this is nice. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, we're doing this. There were so many moments where I felt like I just kept reaching for my phone. And the big theme that came out over the entire week was it was moments where I was feeling emotionally dysregulated, where I was feeling stressed, I was feeling overwhelmed, where I was putting off doing a task because I was afraid in some way, or I just knew it was gonna require a lot of brain power, a lot of creativity, and I wasn't sure if I was up for it. It was almost like this pull to try to check social media to distract myself from those feelings. And that honestly surprised me more than it should. I know how important nervous system regulation is. This is what I talk about all the time with my patients. This is like what I do. And I've done so much work on other coping mechanisms that I've had in the past that have been maybe not the most healthy when I'm feeling dysregulated. And to see that I had transferred that coping mechanism now onto social media or just using my phone in general was definitely eye-opening. As far as my creativity goes, I definitely noticed having just more mental brain space. I felt a little less disorganized, a little less cluttered. There were a couple small things that I've just been putting off that I knew were gonna take like 30 seconds to do once I finally did them. And because I cut out so much consumption, I surprisingly had the time to do them. When I had kept telling myself the story, oh, I just don't have time. I also felt a much stronger connection to my intuition. And those little nudges that came up on different creative projects that I've been thinking about, I want to make progress on, there were a couple of things where I did take one small step forward. And I do credit that to just having more space in those small pockets of 5 to 15 minutes where normally I might go on my phone as a way to fill the time. I had to figure out some other way to fill it. And it meant that I was actually using my brain. So I will say that Monday through Friday, I really did that full challenge. And then Friday, I started feeling sick and I was completely in bed all day Saturday. And that's when I realized that my iPad, I wasn't locked out of all these apps. So Saturday and today, Sunday, I was definitely checking social media and wasn't really following through with the challenge in that sense because I was sick in bed. So I am proud of myself for doing Monday through Friday, and it's definitely made me realize that I need to be super strict with my phone boundaries and not rely on my willpower, and really use an app blocker and set up maybe a schedule. Like I physically can't get into them until noon every day, or if it's I want to set one specific hour a day that I'm checking these apps. As far as YouTube, podcasts I listen to, Substacks, those are things I love, and they do feel like I'm learning things. I just in general prefer long form content, but I can get trapped in a YouTube hole where I just feel like I need to keep learning. I keep learning before I can act on it. So I want to be more intentional, whether it's, deciding specific podcasts I want to listen to that week or specific videos on a topic. I'm not exactly sure how I want to handle it, whether it's max amount of podcasts to listen to or what. But I do know that that is a tendency I have where I'm so curious. I just want to learn. And it is important to keep learning, but there needs to be a balance because I do also want to be creating. So as far as the check-in goes with all of our different components of the Artist's Way, morning pages, 7 for 7. Really interesting if you think about it. I had no issue getting done my morning pages this week, and it was the week where I couldn't be on my phone at all in the morning, and I do think there's a correlation there. And I just wrote in my check-in, I think the big theme of the week was realizing how much energy was being drained by constantly consuming that could have been used to take action. And I think that really just sums up everything I just said. It was pretty alarming, honestly, but also really encouraging how quickly I felt that way. Like it really was the first day I felt amazing, where I was like, wow, my brain feels so clear. And maybe that could even look like in the future, weekends being completely off social media or just picking certain days of the week, especially really busy days. I think that could be a good thing to limit, especially when I'm trying to conserve my energy for the things that really matter to me. Another interesting thing that I noticed was when I got back on the iPad, when I found my little fix, it wasn't that interesting to me to look at. It was actually pretty boring. And I know that, but I can just get trapped in the cycle sometimes of continuously scrolling. I don't think I'm alone in that experience, but it honestly isn't that interesting. And I need to remember that feeling. I need to remember that yes, you want it, but it's because of the bright lights and the dopamine rush that you're getting. And there are other more interesting ways that I can give that to myself. As far as an artist date, I had planned on going thrifting. I was so excited. I had this whole solo date planned, and then I felt sick. I was stuck in bed all day Saturday, but I did end up baking today. I made a pumpkin chocolate chip bread. So I'm counting that as my artist date. It was the best I could do when I wasn't feeling well, but it was really delicious. And I love baking. It's something that I don't do enough. I used to do it all the time when I was in medical school. That was my favorite form of self-care. So I did really enjoy baking again, and I'm looking forward to more cozy fall and winter bakes coming up. That about wraps it up for week 4. I found this really cute little pen holder at Target. So I have my pen and my highlighter handy when I'm doing the reading or I'm doing my morning pages. I just thought that was so cute. I'm really excited for week 5. We are officially a third of the way done. So I will see you at the end of week 5. Week 5 is in the books. Week 5 was all about recovering a sense of possibility. I really enjoyed this week. I feel like it was a nice break almost from all the anger and then the reading deprivation week. It was just kind of nice to have a week that was a little bit more positive, honestly. And I really felt that. A lot of the reading was about the ways that we limit ourselves and about learning to trust your creativity, learning to lean into it, and finding that flow. It makes you think about those small opportunities that you get. And there are times where you shut the door on yourself, where you turn away the opportunity because of your fear, because it doesn't look exactly the way you thought it would. And instead, in this chapter, it's kind of flipping it. How can you lean into it? How can you say yes more? How can you go with the flow of that opportunity? I enjoyed the readings this week. I felt like I was in a good rhythm with my own creativity. I was actually, well, the beginning of the week I was sick, so that wasn't as much fun. But then on Saturday, I had my first market in Pennsylvania since I've moved. If you don't know, I have an herbal products business called Mind Body Herbals. I have a couple videos on it that I'll link if you want to hear more about the business. But one thing that I do is go to different craft fairs, handmade goods fairs, and sell my teas there. I talked about this in my last business vlog, but summer is usually where my business takes a back seat naturally. I kind of regain my creative energy. And then holiday season is a really big time, obviously, where people are buying the teas as gifts. So that's when things naturally ramp up again. I hadn't really been working with my business or been around my creative product that I've created in a while. And it was really nice to be making product, to be mixing herbs. It's something that brings me so much joy to do. I love playing with herbs. That's really what started the whole business. It was such a hobby that gave me a creative outlet when I was in medical school, and then I kind of turned it into something where I do make money off of it, and then I kind of turned it into a business. But it really reminded me how I just thrive when I'm continuously working on my creative projects. Like, it is good for me physically, energy wise, to take a break during the summer on the business, but maybe in the future using that to come up with new blends, to just play with herbs for fun and not necessarily be thinking of a specific product, but just kind of trying out things that I want to create for myself in my own life. It was almost like a big exhale, like a sigh when I was like, I miss this. This is really fun to me. So I enjoyed getting to work on the creative part of my business again. Something I struggled with creating an herbal products business was that it did used to be fun and just creative. And then once the product was done, my favorite part of the process was almost over. What I enjoy is coming up with an idea, figuring out how I can bring it to life, how I can bring it into reality, coming up with the designs, thinking about like how I'm going to market this. And then the part that I enjoy less is the actual sales, to be honest. When I finish the blend, when I finish coming up with a new product, to me, the cycle is complete. I have completed the project, but to have a business, that's actually when it just begins. Now you have something that you can sell, that you can market. And I'm still trying to figure out my way with all of that, to be very transparent with you. But anyway, to connect it back to this week's readings, I think just having that sense of lightness and fun again with this creative passion of mine was something I really needed. Another thing that I wrote down from the readings was, she says an artist must have downtime to do nothing. And this was something I did wrestle with, especially today. Markets are extremely physically taxing on me. I'm on my feet the whole time. I'm talking about my product. I'm trying to explain it to people. It was a really hot day. It's really physical, setting up the tent, setting up your tables. I woke up at 5:45 in the morning to make tea samples, and, with setup, the actual market, taking down, putting everything away, because I've learned the hard way, you just can't sit down. You have to finish the whole thing, or else the next couple of days you're gonna be living in a mess. I mean, I didn't sit down until 6 p.m. So it was just a very long day. So in my head, I had said, Sunday, I'm going to relax. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to lay on the couch, watch some football. I'm not doing anything. And I still, all day long, have been fighting with this. I should be doing this. I should work on this. I'm being so lazy. Those blurts again coming up. And I was doing my check-in, and I kind of went back and looked at my notes from this week. And that line just really stood out to me. Like, you have to have downtime to do nothing. This is how you end up getting burnt out. This is why I'm always in that cycle, because I feel like I just have to keep doing. But it's actually in the taking breaks, the being quote unquote lazy, that you recharge, you refill that well of your creativity. Honestly, I think it's a lesson I'm going to be learning my entire lifetime, but I did allow myself to rest today, and I am proud of that. So as far as our check-in on all the tasks and everything, morning pages, I did 5 out of the 7 days. I didn't do them the day I had the market, and then the day before I was getting ready for the market, I just didn't have time. And I do feel like I keep saying this every week, but I'm still happy with 5 out of 7. We're bulldozing through the artist's way. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I talked about that in the first video. I'm just trying to get through this book this time. One thing she points out in this week's check-in is the page-and-a-half truth, which I feel like I talked about another week, how you have to do the 3 pages, you have to do the full thing to be able to get to what's really under all that junk in your head. And it does usually take a page and a half of excavating all the things you need to get done, all the complaining to be able to get to a real feeling or something that's related to this week in the course or an emotion that you need to process. I totally agree with that. For my artist date, I listened to the new Taylor Swift album by myself with headphones on. That's usually how I listen to the new album. I know everybody has opinions about her, but I really enjoy her music. And it was really interesting watching this album roll out and the criticism that immediately came out. And you're allowed to not like an album and have critiques, but I did find a lot of it so harsh and vicious and immediate, and really got me thinking about all the themes from The Artist's Way, about how people are quick to critique and how you can internalize those critiques and it prevents you from creating your art. And something that I really do admire about Taylor Swift is that she has really thick skin. Like, she is going to create and put this out. And obviously, like, the money backs her up, her fans back her up and everything. But even before, when she came back from her whole like canceled era reputation and everything, I think she's had to move through so many critics and, as Julia Cameron puts it, poisonous playmates in her life. And I do think as a creative, that's really impressive. Another thing that I really take inspiration from her is that she does not stop. Like, she just going and creating and putting things out. She is someone who is so prolific, and that's something that is very inspirational to me. She's also not afraid to try new things, new genres. The way that she's reinvented herself in all of these eras, I think it's a look at how she really follows her creativity and says yes to that opportunity and possibility, to the little nudges that she gets. I think as an artist, you have to admire that. So that was my artist date. I used to just listen to music a lot. I would lay on my floor with my headphones, especially when I was in medical school, and I just needed like a low stakes activity where I wasn't on my phone. And it made me really miss that. I kind of want to bring that back, and I have a couple of albums written down that I want to just listen to, just sit and listen to without doing something else. I did have a piece of paper and I was kind of writing down favorite lines, favorite things from the song, things I didn't like. And that was really fun to me. I did actually do a lot of the exercises this week. I really enjoyed them. The reading was kind of short, so I had some more time to do the exercises. It was a lot of fill in the blanks. So you were kind of just write down the first thing that came to your mind with the prompt. So some of them were, I feel guilty, blank. I worry that, blank. As I play more, I work, blank. So it's a really great exercise. I definitely recommend doing the exercises in week 5. A lot of the exercises were getting at the ways that we self-destruct, kind of like I talked about how we block our own opportunities and possibilities. I'll just share a couple. I worry that I will never rise to my full potential. That's like one of my biggest fears in life, is that I know I'm capable, but I can't create what I want to really create. I sabotage myself a lot because if you don't ever get started, you'll never know what could have happened. So it's definitely my own fear of being out of my comfort zone and being seen as vulnerable, being seen as trying. There was another exercise about kind of examining the payoff of staying blocked, and it's kind of like what I talked about, is not having to be vulnerable then, and avoiding judgment, potential embarrassment. Overall, I really liked week 5. I think it's one of my favorite weeks. I felt a lot more positive energy this week, which was nice to experience. And yeah, I'm looking forward to week 6. I'll see you next week. Back again. Welcome back. It's week 6. This week was called Recovering a Sense of Abundance, and there was a lot of money talk in this one, a lot about what abundance really means. It was an interesting week. I had a heads up that it was going to be an interesting week because she says this week you tackle a major creative block, money, and then later she says this week may feel volatile. And I definitely felt that. It was a lot of low lows and high highs this week. Of course, went along with this reading, as it seems to be doing these past 6 weeks. I think for me, this is a really difficult topic, and there were things in the readings that I really wrestled with. I still am not sure if I fully agree with, or if that's just my own blocks talking. When you talk about art, it's hard for money not to come up, even though it's like the thing you don't want to talk about with it, but it's always there. These ideas of the struggling artist and things that generate or create income for yourself being more important than this silly little art project you work on. But Julia Cameron's view, I think, can really be summed up by this part of the reading where she says, we could become blocked and we blame it on our lack of money. This is never an authentic block. The actual block is our feeling of constriction, our sense of powerlessness. Art requires us to empower ourselves with choice. At the basic level, this means choosing to do self-care. This is one of those where I was like, well, I understand what she's saying, and I do feel that when I say, oh, money's tight right now, I'll do that when I have more money, there is that sense of constriction. I can feel it in my chest how it gets so tight. But I do think being in a tough financial situation that's out of your control can absolutely make you feel that way. But what I kind of came to during the week and what I got out of the reading was that we can create our own little pockets of abundance and luxury. She gives this example of one of her students who would buy herself raspberries every single week as her little luxury, whether they were $1.50 to I think it was $4.50 when this book was written. It definitely can be more than that. But, why do we hold ourselves back? Like, are we not worth $4.50 on raspberries a week? What are some ways that I am subconsciously putting a stopper on my ability to feel abundance, to feel joy? Where am I falling into this trap where I feel like I need to earn working on my art, that I need to earn playing and self-care, instead of it just being a part of who I am and something that I need to do to take care of myself? I did find a lot of the readings this week repeated themes of last week and just layered in this aspect of money, but that was honestly kind of nice to be able to dive even deeper into these topics in my morning pages. And honestly, this week was just very timely in my own life. I've been, in the last 6 months, really evaluating my career and thinking about different opportunities and directions that I can go with it. In the beginning of the week, it got a rejection for something I was excited about. And then the next day I woke up to a new opportunity that happened kind of out of nowhere. And it was very one door closes, a window opens type of thing. And it was a really good reminder that even when we feel stuck, even when we're in a season of waiting, there is abundance when you open yourself up to new opportunities. I know I'm kind of being vague, but I don't know how this opportunity is going to pan out, and I'm still kind of in the thick of it. Hopefully I can share more soon, but this season has been a real test of letting go of, this is the way I see things going, this is the way it has to be, letting go of that and being able to just be open and receiving, and honestly following the flow, following what feels like a yes to me. So very much in the thick of it. This was a really timely week. I feel like this week in particular, I will want to revisit again, because I do think it's a big creative block for me, is finances and money. And I think that's common for a lot of creatives. As far as checking in on our tasks this week, morning pages, 7 out of 7. Woohoo! Let it be known, week 6, I finally did morning pages every single day. And honestly, it was so great. And it's for 2 reasons. One, I just really feel like I'm craving them now, that it's a really safe place for me to land, to process what I'm feeling. There's a number of things in my creative life that I was hoping to make sense of with the Artist Way, and I really feel like I'm doing it. I'm trying to dive deeper into my morning pages, not just using it as a place to rant. First page, I like to let myself rant, and then I will refer back to my notes from the readings, making sure that I'm really thinking about the topics. And then I did, in one of the weeks, she does suggest doing this, but I had created a list of different things that have been on my mind that I want to dive deeper into. So if I'm feeling stuck, I will refer back to that list. I think it was that she suggested before you go to bed, writing down things that are, top of mind for you. And then in the morning, you can receive and get guidance and work through that in the morning. So I kind of have like an overarching list for the whole 12-week period of things I'm working on or working through. And the second reason I think I was successful with the morning pages this week is because I finally re-downloaded my app blocker and blocked my social media, so I can't get into it until 10 a.m. That was a real wake-up call when I realized, oh, I did morning pages every single morning, so maybe it's actually the phone, because I had an early morning in there too. It's just so annoying, honestly. I know it's terrible to be on my phone in the morning, and I just feel this compulsive need to be on it, to just, I'll just check for 5 seconds. And my app blocker had actually expired after the reading deprivation week, where instead I did no social media. My app blocker expired on the last day, of course. And I was like, maybe I don't need it. Maybe I'll try something else. I was talking about maybe getting the brick, but I was like, you know what? Just pay for the app blocker for another year. It was like $28. Yeah, it's worth it when you get all that time back. So now I just have a strict rule where I can't access it. I actually think it's 9:30 p.m. to 9:30 a.m. and I disabled all the workarounds. I literally cannot get into any of my social media apps. That has honestly been very helpful. For my artist date this week, I did something a little bit different. I was at Trader Joe's and I saw all these beautiful fall colored flowers and I was feeling very inspired. It felt very a spontaneous artist date, if you will. And I bought $20 worth of flowers. It was like 4 different bouquets. I'll try and put a picture up. And then I came home and spent an hour arranging these flowers into little vases, which is something I wouldn't normally do. Normally I would just pick out the $3.99 bouquet that's already made, cut it, put it in water and call it a day. I had saved a TikTok of how you can use tape to create a grid and arrange flowers at home. Some of you might already know this, but I had no idea. So I tried it and it was really fun and I had a great time and I think they came out beautiful. And then all week I've been enjoying them too. I put them in my office, in my room, in my bathroom. It was kind of a perfect artist date where I was just following my curiosity. I felt inspired by it. I felt very in tune with the seasons and I was seeing these autumnal colors and I wanted to create something from it. So I'm really proud of myself for following that spark all the way through. And it's a good reminder that that was $20, which is not that much money. And it gave me joy to pick out the flowers. It gave me joy to arrange them. It's given me joy all week to look at them. That is $20 very well spent. And I'm worth that $20 of flowers. It's worth it to invest in my creativity and my inspiration in that way. And then later in the week, I sat down for a couple hours and worked on my creative journal, which I've talked about on this channel a lot. And it's interesting because the last couple of weeks, Julia Cameron's been like, have you considered allowing yourself to do 2 artist dates? And I feel like I did that this week, which was really nice to spend that time, spend that self-care. I felt very connected to my inner creative this week, which is a great feeling. And that's it for week 6, which for the folks keeping track at home, that means we are halfway through. And I'm pretty sure last time I did this in March, April, I stopped at week 7. So we are approaching new territory for me, which is nice because some of these I do remember from last time. And I have no idea what's in the second half of the book. So it'll be an adventure for all of us. Thank you so much to everyone who suggested artist dates on my last video. So helpful. I have a whole list of those. I know one thing that I really want to do as an artist date is go thrifting and then come home and create outfits from it. I think sometimes I'll go thrifting or I'll go shopping and I buy things, but then I don't really understand how I want to style them. So I do have a Pinterest board of different fall outfits I want to try out, different styles. And I think it would be really fun to do an artist date where I go thrifting and then do an artist date where I kind of style my closet. So that's definitely on my list. I learned how to crochet last year, but I haven't picked it up since winter. It feels like a very winter hobby to me. So that can be an artist date because I think I'm gonna have to reteach myself some of that. And then so many of you suggested art galleries, museums, free shows in the area. So that's definitely something that's on my radar too to find. I really appreciate you being my accountability buddy. Honestly, I do think recording these reflections and having that outward accountability is why I've been able to progress through this. And I really do think I'm gonna finish it this time. If you're thinking about doing the artist way, I highly recommend, whether it's, posting online is great, but even just having a friend or someone that you're doing it with where every week you're meeting up, I think that could be so cool and such a great way to make sure that you get through this program that's notoriously hard to get through. If you have any questions about the artist way that I haven't answered in my reflection videos, the last video that I do for weeks 9 through 12, I'm going to do a Q&A at the end. So you can put any of your questions in the comments below and I'll make sure to answer them in that video. If you haven't already, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss the next 2 installments of this bonus series that I'm doing on the artist way journey. I'm sharing 3 weeks at a time of my reflections, and give the video a thumbs up if you're enjoying it. I'll see you in the next video for weeks 7, 8, and 9. Until next time, I'm rooting for you every step of the way.